Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today goes back to July of the year 2023. As you may recall, there were floods in Vermont, devastating floods. Many houses were washed away and tremendous amount of damage in Vermont. Roads were washed away, bridges washed away. It was a terrible July, torrential rains. And I was in Connecticut. I had to pick something up at a shopping center. I was in the parking lot. As I got out of my car, I was inspired to hand a card about our books to a man I saw sitting in the car parked next to me. So it was the next car right next to me. He says, I got out. I said, excuse me, and I explained what the books are about, handed him a card. And he says, what's it about? And I said, it's Coincidence Miracles. And we talked a little bit about it, and he said, well, this is very coincidental for me, Tony. I need a tremendous miracle. We can't even find out about our property in Vermont. We wanted to go up. We can't get through. The roads are blocked. So we're very troubled about it. I'm waiting for my wife to come out. She's in there shopping, and we're going to make some more calls to see if we can get some heads up about how is our property. Is it still there or what? So you might want to know, we've been praying for help, and we're delighted that you talk about coincidence miracles. We could certainly use one. And oh, by the way, look at the pin on my hat, and the pin on his hat said, all I need is a miracle, and it was advertising the music made famous by Mike and the Mechanics. Mike and the Mechanics made that record very famous. You probably know all about it, but it's a song that says, all I need is a miracle. Our next story is from someone who just wanted to let us know that they were planning a trip, a long trip. They prayed about it, asked for wisdom to plan arrival times, etc., and people they had to pick up. And they noticed that when they started their trip, the first car they saw on the highway had a license plate with 3 sevens, and the last car they saw as they got off the highway was a car with 3 eights. So obviously, again, this person is telling us that they prayed, they planned something, and God blesses their prayer, and God blesses them because they consulted God and asked Him for wisdom by praying, and He shows that by showing the 3 sevens as they're entering and 3 eights as they're exiting the interstate highway. Just imagine how God has to have the three cars traveling at a certain exact speed for a certain amount of time in order for this to happen. They pull up on the highway. There's a car with 3.7s there on the highway. They pull off the highway later, I don't know, maybe 2 hours later, and they pull off, and there's a car 3.8s at that highway exactly at that time. So you can see how intricate. That's why when you're in a traffic jam and you're being delayed, you never know that God is causing a couple of cars to wait so they'll be on time for their coincidence miracle arrival. I quickly add, when I see traffic jams, I usually pray that God will clear up the traffic jam because of all the stress that it's causing. And I very often do get answers to that prayer because I'm one of the people sitting in the nightmare and I'm asking God to please let's get the cars moving. So I would encourage you to do that because that'll give you coincidence miracles too, that you were there in order to pray for the traffic to keep moving. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who tells us they had to get a parking spot in a very packed parking lot. And when they got to the parking lot, they saw the likelihood of getting a spot close to the building was pretty slim. They saw a lot of cars with frustrated drivers searching for parking spots. So they did what they hear other people do on our show. They said a prayer. They asked God, where should I go look for a spot? They were inspired to go to the 3rd row and the 3rd parking spot. So they did. They drove over to the 3rd row, the 3rd parking spot close to the building, and they said that when they got there, as soon as they got there, the car in the 3rd spot backed out because they were leaving. And that's a tremendous coincidence miracle because, you see, they prayed, where should I go? And they got inspired, 3rd row, 3rd parking spot, and they go there and the car pulls out. Now, if the car had pulled out earlier, one of these other searching drivers that are driving around trying to get a spot would have got it first. So the perfect timing of them getting to the spot and having the other person back out at that moment is precise timing. Undeniably, it takes God to have such precision, in my opinion. Our next story is from someone who tells us they attended a seance. That's where you go to a meeting and there are people who supposedly can contact people who have died on the other side, their spirits, and talk to them and tell you what these people on the other side are saying or doing. And there are some people who do that, and there are some people who charge fees for that as well. But this person is telling us that their father they were very close to their father, and their father passed away, and they went to the seance, and the person who was running the seance, who apparently speaks to these spirits, was contacted by their father, and they got messages that only their father would know. So they were very impressed that this was great, and they have been getting messages from their father ever since, and they're so happy about this message. Now, I hasten to add, and I hope you haven't left us, but I want you to know that I responded to them and said, it's very important that you bring God into the situation. It's very important that you ask God to show you and reveal to you himself that this is coming from godly sources on the other side, because evil spirits have powers as well. So I'm not saying this was evil or good. I have no idea. But I know that God loves each of us, and if we ask God to help us, he loves us, he will help us. And if you're getting messages from the other side, you certainly want to make sure that God is going to send you clues that they are really coming from with God's approval, that you're not getting them from the other guy. So I know some of you don't like my answer, but I feel very responsible to tell everybody, if you're getting messages from spirits, you should ask God to show you some clues and give you some evidence that these spirits are in fact being approved by him and his messages, because there have been saints in history, there have been angels in history that have appeared to people, even in the Bible, So it's not to say that every time a spirit is dealing with us that they're evil, and it's not to say every time that they're good as well. So we don't know, and I can't answer for everybody. I can't tell you if all your spirits are good or bad. So if you're being contacted by spirits or you're believing that spirits are talking to you, you need to ask God to give you some clear evidence that He is approving all of that, and talk to your ministers, your church ministers as well. It's not to say that there's anything to worry about, but I don't want you to think that I'm telling you it's okay. You need to walk carefully, because the saints in history, if you look at the 10,000 saints in history, they spoke to God directly, and God spoke to them directly. It's rare where angels and saints are talking to people instead of God. So if you're having spirits contact you, please do yourself a favor. Make sure that God gives you some definite, undeniable clues that He's approved of it, and there's no reason why He would not. If God is sending spirits to talk to you, then God certainly wants you to talk to them, and therefore He will give you the evidence. That's how simple it is, okay? So if you ask God to give you evidence and He does not give you evidence, then I would say stop listening to the spirits. Our next story is from a nurse who works in intensive care in the hospital, and she relates to us that she had someone in the hospital under her care who passed away, actually died, and came back to life, and related his story, what it was all like on the other side. So she's just sharing this story with us because she thought that we would all be interested in that. This is another great case of evidence that some people have died and come back, and they have seen the other side. And again, like with getting messages from spirits, if this happens to you or you have family members it happens to, bring God into it. Ask God to give you some evidence that whatever these people are telling you about the other side and things that God might have told them while they were there, ask God to give you some evidence that, these stories are true, and God will, if it is truly Him, He will give you evidence that it's true. Our next coincidence miracle is from a woman who was scheduled for heart surgery 3 days out, and she was getting ready to do some things, chores, etc., and she realized that she had misplaced her Miraculous Medal. And we've talked about it before. You can Google Miraculous Medal 1830, and you'll see on the internet the wonderful story of people who carry the Miraculous Medal and they experience miracles in their life, and there's a promise associated, there's a tradition with it. And anyway, she lost it. She's going to be having heart surgery. She was very concerned. So she said a prayer, please God help me find it. And she said she was having tea with a friend at the house later that day, and while they were sitting there having tea, she saw her friend lift the cup, and the medal was attached to the bottom of the teacup. I don't know, stuck there with maybe frosting or something. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who was having a middle-age crisis. They were driving somewhere, and they were getting very depressed, thinking about all the things they had to do. They're getting older. They can't function as well as when they were young. They were in a bad mood about it, sad about it, and they said a prayer, God, please help me. And they noticed the car in front of them had 3 4s. And as they pulled off the highway, they saw a car with 3 7s, and they're telling us that they feel God sent these plates, 444777, to cheer them up, and it's encouraging them, and they're very happy now. So we don't want to give them any negative feedback, but they were having a middle-age crisis. The key to happiness is keep asking God for help. That's the key to happiness, and that's what this person was doing. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.